Pros call him one of the best fighters in all of Europe, and his stats seem to agree. He's a Dream Hack Duels winner with 7 cash cups under his belt. But how did a 16-year-old from Germany become easily one of the most exciting players to look at right now? Punch your crunch Sarmation motivation guy, and this is the story of Vadeal. Alexander Skillik, better known as Vadeal, has a certain kind of reputation. Okay, if there's one thing people love to say about him, it's that he came out of nowhere, but that isn't completely true. So the first time he entered a major tournament was on the 13th and 14th of April 2019 during Chapter 1 Season 8. It was the qualifiers for the Solo League of the World Cup, and on the first day, he came in 1,243rd place and qualified for the second day. And at the end of the day, he'd get 1,817th place. On paper, this doesn't really look very good. But you gotta remember this, just to be able to compete, you had to reach Champions League in arena mode. He was already one of the best players in his region all the way back then. He wasn't, good enough yet for the top spot, but he ended up walking away with $100 just for coming in the top 2,000 on day 2. And clearly, the money was a great motivator because when July rolled around, he started playing trios for the upcoming Cash Cup. He had definitely improved from before. The tournament consisted of 6 matches, and his team was roughly getting 20th place in their games. But unfortunately, their points weren't too low, and they ended up getting 963rd in the end. And this pattern continued for the next few months. He'd enter any trio and solo cash cups that popped up along the way, and with every additional match he played, he started to place higher and higher. Let me ask you this, do you want to place higher and higher just like Vadeal? You gotta check out ProGuides.com, man, where you can get taught one-on-one by some of our amazing coaches to improve super fast. So by November 2019, he was easily getting spots in the hundreds for the weekly solo cash cups. He managed to grab the attention of a German esports team called Paralogic Esports. It didn't operate anymore, and it was quite small when it was around. It wasn't a FaZe or COG level team, but you wouldn't get that feeling if you were looking at their social media. When they were still around, they had great graphic design, a social media manager, and tons of players under them, and as good as those players were, even back then, none of them could compete with Vadeal. In December, the first big test of his skill would arrive, the 2019 Winter Royale. And this time, it was a duels tournament hosted across the weekend from the 20th to the 22nd. He managed to qualify though, and made it all the way to the finals. Him and his duels partner Claire would end the tournament in 234th place. It was the first time since the World Cup that Vadeal had managed to make money playing Fortnite competitively, and by the end of the weekend, he ended up making $1,400. But more importantly, his playstyle had started to form. If you look at their eliminations, it doesn't look too weird at first. They have an average KD ratio, and their limbs don't really look too different from anybody else. But if you break it down to the individual games from that tournament, you start to see the foundation of what would later make Vadeal such a good player. He could switch his aggression on and off like a switch. In some games, they would end up with 0 limbs. Then in others, they would get as high as 17 in one match. The next major event of his career was on the 16th of January 2020, where he'd enter one of the solo cash cups of the week, and out of even 10,000 players, he ended up coming in 4th. That came with the prize of $1,250. That's one way to announce your name on the scene, but he was still just a small player at the time. What this really meant was he was at the bottom tier of being pro. It was still a long climb to reach the top. Paralogic was happy with his performance though, they even put out a tweet showing off that he got in 4th. Vadeal even replied to it. As far as I can tell, this is Vadeal's first appearance on social media. His Twitch was made later that week on the 22nd of January, with his first stream coming later on the 6th of February. As you might have guessed, all he streamed was Fortnite. And in his first month on Twitch, he built a decent following, and by the end of February, he had around 1,600 followers. In March, Paralogic Esports merged with another organization called Amorphous, and Vadeal would officially be playing for them. But it wasn't for that long though. It was only really for March and April. His contract would expire after that, and he chose to become a free agent. But in those 2 months, he accomplished so much. He was playing duels with Claire again, and this time, they entered the FNCS for that season. They'd walk away at 42nd place, which only had a prize of $200, but it had a very important side effect. He was getting free advertising. By making it to the top 50, suddenly his name was getting out there. People were becoming aware of him, and by the end of March, his Twitch follower count had reached over 7,000. He was playing solos at the same time, and he entered another cash cup on the 2nd of April and managed to get 4th place again. The day after, he opened his YouTube channel, but it was only for watching back then. Now that he was a free agent, he decided to enter the FNCS again, but this time in solos. On May 11th, he battled it out again and gets 16th place. He made it through to the 2nd week with a very respectable ranking. There was a cash cup before the 2nd week of FNCS though, and probably as part of his training, he decided to enter. He'd get 4th place again, beating out players like Mongrel and Benji Fishy. But there was an extra benefit this time. He had recorded all of his footage and got someone else to just edit it for him to a video. This would end up being the very first upload on his channel titled How I Placed 4th in the Solo Cash Cup. What's interesting about this is the quality isn't actually that good. I mean, I'm not talking about the gameplay or editing, but the literal video footage, because it's a recording of his stream, and there's something so amazing about it. Like the fact that an undiscovered player could just appear in a tournament and just rank higher than tons of pros who are using really expensive equipment. It just perfectly represents what the game is all about. The next week was the semifinals for the FNCS, but Vadeal had 3 new letters in front of his name. OTW. He had signed to a French team called Otter World Esports and entered the semifinals as a member of their team. He got 19th place this time, and this meant that he qualified for the grand finals, which were a week away. During the weekends though, he entered a duels cash cup with his new future teammate, Noah Rayleigh. They ended up getting a very respectable 27th place, and at FNCS later that week, Vadeal would clinch out 34th place for a prize of $1,400. And then Vadeal would get introduced to another high-profile player, Resonate, and they started entering into squad matches. In their first trio match together, they get 24th place. In the second, they get 8th, and on July 22nd, the third time they entered, they come in first. This was the first top-tier win of Vadeal's career, and as impressive as it is, there were a lot of fanboys that didn't really want him to succeed. This wasn't that high-profile of a tournament, it was just a cash cup, and it was squads. Maybe his teammates were just carrying him, who knows? But with playing with skilled teammates started to improve his solo game too. In July, his contact with Otter World Esports had expired and he was officially a free agent again. But he couldn't find an org that matched the core ethics and support he was really looking for in a team. And in August 2020, he made it all the way to Season 3 FNCS Solo Grand Finals without being on the team. And he managed to get 13th place in it, all through his dedication to the game. But why settle for 13th when you can be first? A month later, he entered a Solo Cash Cup and played his heart out. Across 8 matches, he had 5 victories, and altogether, he had 62 eliminations across those 8 games. That gave him a KD ratio of just over 20. There were over 13,000 players who entered, and he came in first with a 14-point lead over second place, and he took home a clean $3,000 in prize money for his hard work. On October 9th, Vadeal signed to Wave Esports. In his first year of serious tournament play, he won 2 cash cups, ended up in the top 13 of an FNCS final, and he ended up signed to a major team. And at the time, he had around 35,000 followers on Twitch and around 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. And a few weeks from then, he performed one of the most memorable kills of his entire career. It's the FNCS Heats at the end of October. Vadeal is playing in a trio with 2 other players, Stroky and Kylie, 2 of Vadeal's teammates. Noah and Raisin couldn't enter, so they were watching live at home hoping the best for their friend. When this happens.
Jetzt an, Digga, Side-Jump, Peace-Control, Digga. Was will er machen? Aber was will Mongrel da machen? Sag mir das mal. Der kann da nichts machen.
Oh mein Gott!
Vadeal doesn't just kill Mongrel, man. Like, he boxes him in. He manages to corner one of the most aggressive players in the world and then does a Mongrel classic on Mongrel. What an incredible limb. As a trio, they were unbelievable during this heat and ended up getting second place. And at the grand finals though, they only got 28th and Mongrel won. But come on, like that winning trio was Mongrel, Mitchell, and Tayson. Most pros would lose to that combo. A week after the tournament ended, it was the DreamHack Open. Vadeal entered with Noah as it was a duos tournament. It seemed like it wasn't going to go so well. The two did have amazing results together, but not really as just a duo, especially not against pros of this level like Wolfies and Tayson. But somehow they came first, and it wasn't even clutch. They averaged 10th place across all 6 matches they played, getting around 6 eliminations per game. They had 48 points over second place and secured themselves $12,000 each for winning the major. In the months that followed DreamHack, Vadeal would enter many different tournaments. He'd win a Trios Cash Cup in November, and a month later, him and Noah would win that year's Logitech G Cup. And he had built such a name for himself by now that he was starting to get a lot of attention. And by the end of December, he was at 65,000 subscribers on YouTube and was almost at 150,000 followers on Twitch. And at the end of Chapter 2, Season 4 in December, Levin2K interviewed over 40 EU pros about this season and posted his results on Twitter. One question that he asked was who each player would pick for their personal best in-game fighter for that season. 38% said Vadeal, 37% said Noah Lee, and 20% said Raisonné. That means 95% of the EU pros who were interviewed chose one player in their trio. Nobody else even came close. He also asked the pros who they choose for the most improved player of the season, and 51% chose Vadeal. It's not hard to see why. His mechanical skill, thinking, and adaptation is some of the best that we've ever seen, and he's just starting out. Recently, he's been teasing leaving Fortnite for another game he's fallen in love with, Valorant. And it seems like he's amazing at that as well. I really hope he just sticks with Fortnite longer so we can just see his full potential though. But, I wouldn't worry about it. As late as February 27th this year, he had just won another Solos Cash Cup. It seems like he's here to stay. All right, guys, well, that was the story of Vadeal. We hope you guys enjoyed this video, and remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Listen, I'm so excited, Puncher Crunch Army. We're almost at 1 million subscribers, and that's where we're gonna release my story of how I made it to where I'm at today. It's gonna be so inspiring. Also, connect with my Instagram at Your Motivation Guy. Man, I believe in you guys. I love you guys. Keep grinding, never quit. I'll see you soon.